Hey guys, I'm Jared from Vacationeeze, and I'm here with a lovely couple who is going to share their experience planning their destination wedding in Mexico. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Karan. This is Birva. We got married in 2023
Yeah.
in Mexico at the El Dorado Royale Resort. We found out about you guys from Hiran, who is a college friend of ours. He owns his own wedding company, and he spoke highly of you guys. We met with your father first, and then we went from there to figure out exactly where we wanted to do the location. We talked about budget, exactly what we wanted because we were doing a Hindu ceremony as well, but there's like four or five different ceremonies wrapped into one. So we wanted to find a resort that A has done it before and B somebody that has vouched for it because we never went and visited before our wedding proper. So
Yeah.
it was good that we guys had you on hand.
That's interesting. So you are one of many couples who never actually step foot on the resort or the venue
Yeah.
until 2 or 3 days before you get married. Tell me how that
Mhm.
made you feel. Were you stressed about that? Were you overwhelmed? Like, tell me more.
It was stressful because you could plan it perfectly to like the last little detail, but then you really don't know how it's going to come to fruition until you see it. So it was stressful knowing that, like, what if everything is completely wrong in person, but it looked great in pictures? That was like one of our biggest worries, but luckily it worked out for us and everything was actually to like our exact specifications.
And so tell me, like, as you were thinking about the process, what events were important to you? What were the other components that were important to you as you thought about your celebration with your friends and family?
We didn't have a lot of events, like a lot of the typical Hindu ceremonial like events. We kind of crunched it down to just maybe two to three main events, the welcome night, the wedding, cocktail, and reception. But the biggest thing for us is we were inspired to have a destination wedding because we went to one and it just seemed very seamless. It seemed like a vacation. You just happened to go to a wedding. And that's kind of the feel that we wanted others to have. So that was like a big thing for us to make sure that our friends and family felt like, oh, yeah, we're just on vacation in Mexico and we are just happening like to go to Karan and Birva's wedding.
We wanted to just boil it down to a couple of events, not try to inundate the
Yeah.
guests with too many. So it was just, be here this day, be here this day, be here this day. Other than that, you can go do what you want.
A question I always get from couples is, I'm thinking of inviting 200 people. How many people can I expect to actually come? I'm curious from you guys' perspective, like how many people did you invite and what was that final number? What did that look like for you?
It was tough because we kept hearing from people, you're going to invite 100% of people, but only like 30 to 60% will show up. Everyone took this as an opportunity, like, heck yeah, we're going to Mexico. Almost like 98% of the people said yes.
Immediately, I think after we sent out the email, we got so many RSVPs. I think we got one no, and that was from somebody that we already knew that was going to say no.
Yeah.
So, I forget what was the final count.
We were at 298, and that was a number where it was way smaller than what our parents had initially wanted, but we
Yeah.
had to kind of sort of keep a
Yeah,
cap on it. But yeah, I think we were at
yeah,
298,
298.
297, something like that.
You bring up a few interesting things that regularly come up when I'm talking to prospective couples. One is people are so worried, like, oh, if I invite 100 people, only 30 are going to show up. And I always
Hmm.
tell them, like, no, they want to celebrate you because they love you, but they also want an excuse to go on a vacation. And like you
Yeah.
Yeah.
said, the wedding is a piece of it, and then they still are going to add on days and enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
And that brings me to another point that couple says, oh, I don't want to burden my guests. I only want them to go for 2 or 3 days. And while most hotels have, a 3 or 4 night minimum, we find the data shows people stay 4, 5, 6 nights because they
Yeah.
want to have that, celebration and they want to go enjoy themselves. And I think you guys probably experienced that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had people that went early. We had people that stayed late. A
Yeah.
couple of people went to Tulum.
Hmm.
So they extended their vacation. Some people just stayed at the resort for an extra couple days to just unwind and relax. But I think that's what is really good about destination weddings is you have a couple events you need to attend. Everything else you can kind of stay either at your leisure if you're a beach bum or just want to sit at the pool bar, or you can go island hop, or you can go early. So I think what's really good is we told everybody about a year beforehand about it, so it gave people time
Hmm.
to figure out exactly what to do.
How did you feel about the process of working with a travel advisor to help all your guests answer their questions and reserve their rooms throughout the process?
I would highly recommend you work with a travel
Yeah.
advisor. you're gonna, especially as a person who's like a couple who's getting married, there's so many other things that are going on. You have to meet with not just you, the people that are planning the your wedding there. Like we met with her almost every single week to help, especially for an Indian wedding where
Yeah.
there's so many particular things you need to have. There's people that are bringing stuff from here because it's
Mhm.
traditional. I would highly recommend working with one because even when getting there, we had trouble with some limos or some people picking us up to go
Yeah.
back and forth. And instead of us we were getting messaged on WhatsApp and saying like, where are we going? We immediately got in contact with you. You set everything up, set expectations. So I think it's just over communicating with your travel agent is probably the biggest piece of advice that I would have.
You could think you like know everything that you want or need, but at the end of the day, a travel agent or a wedding coordinator is going to think of things. It's the little things that they're thinking of, and they'll have a list because you guys do it all the time, and you guys are doing weddings over and over. And then you think, I didn't even think of that. And I'm like, thank God you told me. And then that's another thing added to the list, but it's checked off and completed.
If you get married at home, it's pretty easy, right? Like you pick the three hotels, say, hey, we've got a room block here, go book your room. But when you're getting married in Mexico or the Caribbean, it's a lot more complicated and people aren't as familiar with that type of travel and they have a lot of questions. And particularly for an Indian wedding where there's a lot more events and people might be traveling from all over the place and you've got kids involved typically. And you guys are busy. You have jobs. You don't want to deal with all the questions. You don't want your friends and family calling you and asking about the 3 night rate or the 4 night rate and when's the deposit due and well, how do I handle my flights and all these things that aren't necessarily a big component if you get married at home. But when you get married in Mexico or the Caribbean, it's a lot more complicated and it's
Yeah.
sometimes hard to understand that if you haven't gone through the process before.
And
Yeah.
I will say gold star for Vacationeeze because we had the one guest, your one of your aunts or your mom's friends. She booked the flight, but she didn't book a
Yeah.
room. And you had told us when she was sending flight information, well, hold on, you didn't even book a room. And we're like, oh my gosh, so she's gonna come here and what, sleep on the beach? Like, what's gonna happen? So, like, it was nice to know that that problem had came up. You kind of sort of handled it and then let us know after the fact. And we're like, oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are the
That
type of
was
curveballs you get
easy.
thrown. That's why we keep reiterating, like,
Yeah.
have a travel agent because they can help it because you get that those aren't the only curveballs you're going to have. During the event, we had one where we had some weather issues, but they were one step ahead every single time. And they came to us at 7 in the morning while we were sleeping. We got a knock on our door, and it was our day of or on premises
Okay.
coordinator. And he came in and he was just like, "Hey, listen, it may rain right after the wedding, so be prepared. Do you want to keep this outdoors? Do you want to move it indoors?" And we kept saying, like, "Do you really think we can keep this outdoors? That's why we came over here." He was like, "I recommend you move it indoors."
Hmm.
We moved everything indoors. It's a cocktail party, so of course we didn't even see it,
Yeah.
but we found out that later on that everybody was raving about the cocktail hour. So they made it seamless. They decorated it. They had it blocked off. So it wasn't a cocktail hour that turned into the reception. It was a
Right.
cocktail hour and then the ballroom opened into the reception. So those are a couple of things that we kind of had like those day off type of curveballs.
The backup plans is also something that comes up often. Again, you're getting
Yeah.
married in Mexico or the Caribbean and your goal and your hope is like I want to be married looking at the water, on the rooftop.
Right.
And sometimes Mother Nature takes control. As much as I wish we can't control the weather.
Hmm.
And I find that the wedding teams do a great job of keeping you updated. They are constantly looking at the forecast. They've got like 7 different apps to look at the forecast. And they are very clear about, hey, by noon we need to make that decision, and we're going to have this backup plan. And again, this is kind of like the day of your wedding or potentially the day before your wedding, and so you're probably stressed about it. But it sounds like in this case, the planner was on it, moved things
Hmm.
seamlessly, and it probably to your guest, they didn't know any different.
Yeah. And it worked out because it downpoured for like a solid hour and a half.
One of the big questions again that I get from couples all the time, particularly when it comes to South Asian weddings, is around budgeting and budget planning and vendors. The packages are kind of a starting place, and a lot of resorts have
Yeah.
gotten pretty good about the packages, but the wedding packages don't have everything baked into them, and so there's always going to be that, add-ons on top. And so I'm curious how you guys approached the budgeting process and vendors, and where did you net out from where you started on what you were hoping to spend to where you ultimately landed?
I think it goes back to when we first started in New Jersey and we got a quote for one event for one day was $60,000. And that wasn't even including the food and the alcohol. That was just to rent the room out. I think we netted at the end was somewhere around 70,000, right? Was 77?
After all the add-ons when we got there, it was around like 80 to like 82.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
just yeah, right around $80,000. So
But that was for 4 events with
yeah.
food, drink, decoration, everything.
And we got kickbacks from because we had, I think, how many rooms did we book?
I think Jared would
Think it
know
was
I
better.
think
90,
it's about
98.
yeah, it was just under
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like
100.
98 rooms at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of really good deals on it.
They gave us a list, like a packet of vendors that we could choose, and some of them were internal and some of them were external. We really just went based off like the equipment that they had or anything like that. But as far as like, bridal mehndi or like makeup and hair and all that, I was lucky because I had that one girl who had gotten there married before, so I was able to ask her. And I just kind of took her child pictures as like word, and that was it, and I just kind of went for it. The only real external one that they didn't recommend anything for us or that we didn't use or look at was our DJ, who happened to be my uncle. So that just kind of worked out by itself. The planning process, it's made easy because for like the El Dorado specifically, they had like a wedding planner to help coordinate things, and she was great. What was her name? Anna, I
Yeah,
think.
Anna, yeah.
She had like an entire Excel sheet, so she would basically meet with us one day, and then that was the starting point. She was like, basically, this is your homework. Think of what you want, go on the website and everything. And would just tell her what food we wanted, what kind of drink package we wanted, what, like, I would just copy and paste pictures of decorations. And I'm like, you guys take it from here. This is just kind of like what I want as like a base level. And she was great. And she started filling out the Excel sheet, and then she would tell me what I needed for the next event, and then I would go back the next week with him, and we would tell her and do the same thing all over again until we were done planning.
What would you say to a couple who's thinking about doing a destination wedding but is feeling overwhelmed and just like stuck in the process?
Oh yeah, definitely. You're definitely going to feel like that, especially at the beginning when you haven't seen anything. But the coordinators, the Vacationeeze and the coordinators at the resort make it so much easier. And then once you've seen like how they're planning everything, splitting things off, and help you make decisions or kind of dividing up your homework for the day essentially to make the decisions, it gets a little bit easier because like once you made it, just know that it's off your checklist and they're already handling it.
I'm always curious to ask couples like, would you recommend Vacationeeze to other couples and what makes you confident to do that?
Hmm.
I'll give you just a quick thing of how good Vacationeeze is. Um, I was talking to my buddy and they were asking me a couple things. So I was just like, hey, I'm going to be a little bit late today. I'm doing it. We're doing this for you because you guys were such good partners. And one of my buddies was like, is your interview with Jared? This is a couple of years ago that all he
Oh,
did was message you back and forth and literally, and I said, yep. And he said, Jared, he's the best. So that's how much it is that one of our guests still knows Jared by name.
yeah.
And
Wow.
we were just talking about the because we all I said was Vacationeeze, and then his second question was with Jared. So everybody still talks mostly about you
Yeah.
because you were our on-site person as well. Like like on-site, but you were helping out with it from remotely. But
You were the
um,
star.
I
Yeah,
think
you guys are the stars. I was just the supporting cast.
we have nothing but great things to say about you guys. I
Yeah.
think even from the planning process, from talking to your dad and just trying to figure out where to go, and him putting us at ease of how long he's been doing this, how it's a family run business, and then you guys were local as well. It just kind of made so much sense. And then meeting you and kind of going through everything with you, I think that just it put us more at ease because of it's such a big task to get everybody over there that you guys made it so easy for us. So from my perspective, but we couldn't, recommend you guys more highly.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I always feel like, like you said, my parents started this business many, many years ago because we saw a huge gap in the destination wedding travel space. There was a lot of information out there, but we felt like there was still a gap in helping couples like yourselves and in making an informed decision, helping your guests throughout the process. And so, to this day, 15, 20 years later, we still feel really lucky that we get to play like this small role in people's huge life moments. And this is potentially the biggest day of your life. And so we feel lucky and grateful that you chose us to work with you. And I'm grateful that, many years later, we're still chatting and that people remember me. I mean, hopefully for good reasons. And so I just want to say thank you. And thank you for working with us and talking to my dad so many years ago and working with us and letting us again be part of your celebration. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
And for anybody who's on the fence about a destination wedding, do it. You will
Yeah.
have no regrets. This team is the best, and you're going to have people that are looking out for you day in and day out. So if you're on the fence, do it.